Namaste everyone. My name is Pranam. I belong to faculty of Finnis, and in today's session we are going to learn about Finnis. So McCormick once commented on Finnis's natural law and natural rights, and stated that the text necessitates our abandoning our caricature version of what natural law theory is. So since what we have seen that the various philosophers has basically related natural law with a reason, and that reason is coming from the source of God or somewhat divine. But Finnis has changed this view out and out. So what did he do? So Finnis has attempted in recent years to restate the natural law in terms acceptable to contemporary society. And this has involved him in an enumeration of human goods, that is, fundamental values of man's existence that are self evident, the securing of which requires a system of law. So, the human goods must be discussed in any answer related to Finnis. No consideration should be given to the claim that Finnish has restored meaning to the true natural law, which has been discredited because of distorted versions of its pretensions. Criticism of Finnis ought to be mentioned also. So, a proper plan to know or to get the introduction of Finnis is like the caricature of natural law. What was the past visions of natural law? Essence of Finnish restatement of natural law and the seven human goods. And laws end as common good, and nobody can escape the criticism. So, criticism of Finnis' catalogue, imprecision of his categories, problem of the self-evident nature of the goods, and then we will conclude this lecture. So, let's start with the Finnis's uh, theory of natural law and natural rights. So, in past, natural law has always been seen as a system of jurisprudential thought which asserts that existence in nature which asserts the existence in nature of a rational order from which we can derive universal and eternal value statements, allowing us to evaluate the legal structure with objectivity. So, the caricature version which McCormick has in mind is presumably sketched from the claims of those jurists who see natural law as based rigidly upon a unique revelation of truth, as flaunting the principle that ought cannot be derived from is, and as proclaiming a set of immutable principles, including the assertion that unjust law cannot be law. So, some of Finnish attempts to remove distortions of the image are considered later in the session. So, uh, various attempts create various problems, right? So, in natural law and natural right was one such attempt to discuss natural law and what could be the rights arises out of natural law, and what could be the human right arises out of natural law. With this, let's start the discussion over natural law and human rights. So, Finish's work, Natural Law and Human Rights, is in essence a restatement of natural law in a very novel and a contemporary term. So, Finish's central thesis consists of two major propositions. First, there are certain human goods, and that is basic values of human existence that are self-evident and that can be secured only through the law. Secondly, these goods may be achieved through practical reasonableness, and this too necessitates law. The human goods constitute a catalogue of forms of human flourishing, exemplifying the conditions required by individuals. if they are to attain their full potential. So and basically the potential is an end which was reiterated in earlier versions of natural law. The practical reasonableness involves the use of word practical in an Aristotelian sense, like we saw in previous session related with Aristotle, that Aristotle talked about this mean. So what does Aristotle mean with the word practical? Like with a view to decision and action, it is an aspect of human flourishing. Finnish is seeking in his categorization of human good to provide a rational basis for morality and justification for law. So the forms of human goods that are irreducibly basic are seven in number, and those are life, knowledge, friendship, play, aesthetic, practicable reasonableness, and religion. These constitute human well-being, not only human being. These seven values creates human well-being. And any real understanding of law or justice must rest on a comprehension of the nature of these goods. Although there may be innumerable forms of human goods, Finnish claims that those outside his list are merely ways or combination of ways of attaining any of the seven enumerated. So by life, he has in mind the drive of self-preservation. The term signifies every aspect of its vitality, including anything done by mankind to further its preservation. Knowledge corresponds to man's basic drive of curiosity. It is knowledge for its own sake and ranges widely from scientific and philosophical speculation to mundane questions. Now, play. Play involves engaging in performances which have no point beyond the performances themselves. Now, what is aesthetic experience? Aesthetic experiences are perception and enjoyment of dance or song or football or cricket, so to speak, Bollywood. So, for example, may involve actions of one's own or mere contemplation, and friendship or sociability necessitates being in a relationship of friendship with at least one other person. The practical reasonableness refers to freedom and reason, integrity and authenticity. It relates to bringing one's own intelligence to bear effectively on the problems of choosing one's actions and lifestyles and shaping one's character. The Finnish uses the term religion in an unusual sense, as he refers it to a concern from an order of things beyond each and every individual. But these human goods are, according to Finnish, basic because they are not derived from other goods, and any other value which will be seen merely subordinate to them and objective, which may be evidenced from a survey of anthropological research which reveals that all human societies show a concern for value of human life. Each constitutes a principle for practical reasoning, and they are also self-evident. Thus, the good of knowledge is self-evident in that it cannot be demonstrated, but equally it needs no demonstration, no further argument. It has the quality of ultimacy. Finnis insists that all self-evident principles are not validated by individual feelings, and that in every field of human inquiry there is and there must be at some point an end to derivation and inference. So at that point, we find ourselves in face of the self-evident. Now, the basic is very fundamental. So the goods are equally fundamental, and none can be shown to be more fundamental than any of the other, and therefore there is no objective priority of the values among them. So they possess the property of incommensurability. Practical reasonableness, which is a human good, is also a proposition in Finnis' overall scheme. Practical reasonableness includes 10 principles, allowing the individual to distinguish the social from the unsocial type of thinking, thereby enabling him to distinguish morally right and wrong actions. The first, that an individual should have a rational plan of life, reflecting a harmonious set of purposes and effective commitments. He should pay equal regards to all the human goods and should not neglect the significance of others. He should have a certain detachment from the projects he undertakes and should not abandon his commitments lightly. Opportunity ought not to be wasted by using needlessly inefficient methods, and there must be respect for the human good in any act performed. One should promote the common good and act according to one's conscience. In his later work, Finnish added a further principle, namely that one should not choose apparent goods. Sorry, excuse me, knowing them to be a mere simulation of real goods. Now, it should be observed that Finnish, in his articulation of a scheme of common goods and values, is moving beyond any particular set of religious tenets. His view of the natural law suggests the objective nature of the values he enunciates. These values are not the exclusive property of Catholic believers. His emphasis on the need of reason about moral matters, and that necessities decisions on which goods are worth pursuing, goes beyond a purely religious approach of the good life. So he goes beyond Aristotle. Finnish views their law as if involving rules made by a determinate and effective authority for a complete community, strengthened by appropriate sanctions and directed at the reasonable resolution of the community's problems. Law is a means to an end, and the end is community is good, and its manner and form should be adapted to that good by specificity, minimization of arbitrariness, and maintenance of equality. Maintenance of quality of reciprocity between the subjects of law among themselves and in their relations with authorities. The Aquinas maxim lex injusta non est lex is viewed by Finnis as a pure nonsense. He denies the correctness of its attribution to Aquinas and stresses that in natural tradition, wicked laws may have legal validity where they are enacted constitutionally and were accepted by the courts as guides to judicial decisions. One may have, according to natural tradition, a collateral obligation to confirm some iniquitous laws so as to uphold respect for the legal system as a whole. So the Finnish view of laws in terms of what it achieves rather than what it is has been considered less than helpful. It suggests a mere instrumental view of law and fails to examine the question, which is vital for advocates of natural law, or the fundamental significance of law in our society. His argument concerning lex injusta has been criticized as resting on casuistry and as providing no guide for actions to individuals within a community in which the law is perceived as oppressive. There is no doubt that there is a doubt to Finnish general attitude to the good and the just. So it calls for a fundamental examination of the place of the individual within society. In the tradition of natural law, he urges for emphasis to be placed on human condition and on the ways in which man may fulfill himself. His greatest achievement in the eyes of some jurists may be that he has called attention to the principle which he claims to be possess eternal validity and transcend mere historical discourse, and that he has helped us to recognize the level of agreement about human ends and how to achieve them, and he has provided a shelter from the wind of moral relativism, which is an accomplishment in itself. We will move to further lectures in moving sessions. Till then, thank you.